This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Hello and welcome to the interview. Today we are looking at a facet of our security infrastructure in Nigeria. Police stations and barracks across the country remain in a state of disrepair despite recent police reforms and attempts at infrastructural upgrades. Now, this is also despite the October 2020 EndSARS protests where Nigerians called for retraining and improved welfare of police officers, amongst other demands. In light of the push for state police and with the general acceptance that the police force should handle Nigeria's internal security rather than the military, it has become necessary to re-examine how police welfare impacts the service that they render. Joining us this morning is the Executive Director of Elixir Trust Foundation, Emmanuel Ikule. Mr. Ikule, good morning and thank you for joining us on the interview.
Good morning and pleased to be with you this morning.
Glad to have you. To start with, what is your, because you in our conversation with you prior to this, you indicated that your foundation is very involved in advocacy work around police reforms. Can you beg your pardon, around police welfare? Can you speak to us regarding the state of the welfare that is available to members of the police force?
For any security agency or for any institution to work properly, it means the welfare of such members of such an organization or such officers of that police of that law enforcement agency, their welfare has to be considered. But as it concerns our own police, Nigerian police force, it's been we are not there yet. Let me put it that way. Because
when you say we're not there yet, okay, in what areas are we not there yet? What does that mean?
Okay, so I will start with first with the remuneration. If you look at the new Police Act of 2020, Section 20, it talks about paying officers the same amount or similar amount to their colleagues in other law enforcement agencies like the military and the rest. But in our case, that is not the situation. So still police are underpaid. That is the first one. If you also look at the, there's no really housing package as it should be. A lot of police officers till date actually pay for their accommodations. And most times the places they stay, if you can visit such places, you'd really be disappointed that this is the quality of service such a person that is being privileged to handle guns or armories are staying. And these are some of the reasons that leads them to also end up being corrupt, because we are looking at, okay, I'm working here. If I'm being paid 50,000 naira while I'm working and I don't even have a place to stay. If at the time I retire after 35 years, where should I be staying? Such persons may be thinking of other ways of raising money, and certainly we know that it will really be a criminal ways to raise such monies. If you go to the training and retraining of officers, you also look at the training structures, the police colleges, the police schools. They are not in good shape. The curriculum itself that is being taught to them is actually outdated as well. Then if you go further to look at the armory and maybe the vehicles or the equipment they are also using, we keep hearing things of accidental discharge and all that. It goes to show the quality of armory or weapons or equipment they are using. I know of a station close to where I'm staying that they rent buses to be able to carry out policing duties. It's not supposed to be so for a country like ours, but that is the situation we have found ourselves. If you look at the barracks, or you have gone close to any barracks at all, police barracks in particular, you look at the condition it is, but you can never see a military barracks be in such a shape. It means they have been kind of a preferential treatment given to some law enforcement agencies better than others, which shouldn't be, and that is part of what is affecting the commitment of the police we have. And even after they retire, I was privileged in 2013 to work with an insurance company. And during this time, to work in trying to ensure that people that retire from federal parastatals are being paid well. So move them from the PFAs that that were deducting money when they were working to an insurance company that pays them annuity. And you discover that 3/4 of them that retire, what they have as the lump sum, the gratuity, and what they'll be paying them monthly, it will be around 5 million. It will be around 3 million. So if 3/4 of persons at this time you are retiring and they are paying you 25% of 5 million, that means you'll be having about 1 point something or thereabout. What will you, maybe you pay rent for a year. What happens to then you'll be paid monthly based on calculated amounts that will be paid monthly for you. So how will that be able to impact on you and your family? After working for 35 years for a country like ours, then at the point of retirement, that is only what you have at hand. So a lot of them are actually not being motivated. So it affects their morale. And once you are not getting the job satisfaction you desire, it affects the quality of service you offer to the people that you should be protecting, and in this case, our country, Nigeria.
So we have seen from time to time efforts to improve the police in carrying out their duties in Nigeria. We've seen, in some cases, private companies give out vehicles to the police. We've seen motorcycles giving out to the police and so on and so forth. But we want to directly address the situation that is evident in Lagos. I did take a trip by the Ikoyi police barracks yesterday, and it's still in a state of disrepair. And I'm curious as to how come we have seen interventions in the area of some form of equipment, but housing and welfare itself continues to be a recurrent theme in talking about improving, or I guess the word is reforming, the police. Why do you think we are not seeing efforts, or if you can speak to us as to why we're not seeing efforts to actually improve the most basic need of any human being, and in this case the police, and that's in terms of the shelter that they need?
Okay, the first one, I would say lack of political will. The government have actually paid lip service to police reforms since from time, and they have actually paid lip service to that. I'll start with after the Police Act was signed, the president actually has people that can look and interpret the laws even to him before he even signed it. And he should be aware of Section 20 that provides that officers should be able to receive the same remuneration with other law enforcement officers. That is not being implemented. If you go further to look, as of 2017, then the then IGP complained that when police usually submit a budget of 300 billion. At the end of the day, the budgetary allocation that will be approved may end up being about 50 billion. And the one that will be released may end up being about 38 billion. So it means what they have budgeted for, they don't get funds to be able to address those concerns. That is one. Secondly, when also the external oversight agencies or have ministries that feel it's just going there, the oversight of ensuring that even the little money that is being paid is actually being channeled to the right use, it's also not been there. So monitoring and evaluation by external oversight agency has not really also been there. At the same time, in 2019, police trust fund that was at the national that was signed just few minutes just after the NSAS. That trust fund gave rise because civil society advocated for trust fund to be an alternative source of funding for the police, because we knew that funds for training and retraining of police officers was also to establishment of police institutes like the barracks, the stations, the training colleges, and also to provide for armory, because we also know that was also a lack. But this particular fund has about 0.5% of the Nigerian budget supposed to be accrued to that particular account. The state government, all the support that they were given before, instead of just giving that it won't be at actually it won't be taken to be monitored. These funds can be channeled to that particular account where all the accounts is in a particular place that you can be monitored and seen whether it has been actually been put to use. But despite even having that alternative funding, it has become a place where the government just sent some people there to go and spend the money not for the use it was meant for. So even up to date, you keep pushing, you keep having press conferences, CSOs keep having press conferences, pushing them, advocating that the police trust fund activate itself and perform the duty why it was created for. But till date, that has not been the issue. And any moment from now, it will also be closing because it was just a short-term project of 6 years. So that is also another issue. And then the police officers themselves, a lot of those persons, by the time they were recruited, they were sent there by godfathers to go and represent them. Like the last recruitment of constables, I related with about 2 PROs in different states. And the feedback they gave was they went to the communities and asked the chiefs to give them youths from the communities. And most of these persons, those chiefs give to them are usually thugs, political thugs. And these persons will end up, because before then they were already involving themselves in criminal activities. And then at the end of the day, you push them to become police officers. What do you expect them to reflect at the end of the day? It means you have legalized criminality.
Mr. Ikule,
so these are other issues.
I do hear what you said, and because you've touched on something as sensitive as that, it would be important to be able to say that this is the particular person or the particular area where these people whom you say are thugs were recruited. And I say this is simply because we don't have the police on this end to defend against the statements that you've made at the moment, and it does have grave implications. Because we don't have the ability to make that comeback, unless you have a little more information you'd like to share with us on the matter. If not, I'd like us to speak on something else at the moment.
Okay, let me just say briefly.
Yes.
If you ask any PRO that actually of any state that was around during the recruitment of last 10,000 constables, they will tell you that in the communities, the people that gave them persons to work with were the chiefs. None of them will deny this. This is a fact. None of them will deny this.
Okay, so we will do our best to reach out to the Police Service Commission, which is in charge of recruitment, to put some of these things that you've raised before them. I want us to touch on the living conditions. It was something that led to part of your response to Stephen's question just now. Some of the advice that has been given is that instead of using police barracks, we should actually have police officers be integrated into society. In light of this discussion around state police, do you think that this is perhaps the moment to revisit that suggestion?
So, having state police is something that's, for a country like ours that practices a federal system of government, by now we should already have it. But the challenge and why a lot of persons are skeptical about it coming into play now is because of the conduct of some governments or governors.
Mr. Ikule, if I may, my apologies. I guess I did not ask my question as clear as possible. What I'm asking is, now we're discussing state police, which will have possible implications on the existing police force at federal level. Is this the moment to rediscuss putting police as part of communities? Instead of them living in barracks, we disintegrate the barracks system and allow police officers to essentially be my neighbor, be your neighbor. Is this the moment?
It's just like I said earlier, it's the right thing to do. Because if the police and the citizens are living together, it makes it easier for the police to understand the situation of the people, to understand the plight of the people, and they should also know how to protect the people better. When you stay in the barracks and just come in just to intervene in the community, means you don't have knowledge about the people. And these issues come up whenever they interact or relate, because everybody will be talking from his own perspective. But if they are living together in the community, then it should be better. And we most times you see us advocating for community police, where the police understands the people and where the people that are willing to work with them because they trust them that they will protect their rights. So it's actually a good thing, and it's something that we have always been advocating, because what is the essence? You put people in barracks and you cannot cater for them. What's the essence where you put some people in barracks and then some of the police officers are still in the community? What's the reason? It means you are giving some persons preferential treatment and the others you are victimizing them. So it doesn't add up. Let us work on a system that we feel will work for us.
So from your lobbying,
living with the community.
From what CSOs have been saying, I'm just wondering whether we will likely see it in conversation. And here's why. The Police Act of 2020 repealed the one we had in 2004, right? So we're talking a clear, 16 years or so of one legislation that governed the activities of the police. And yet this was not, it didn't make it into the final print of the law, the one that was signed by the president. What's the likelihood that we will see any of the reforms, whether it's around housing or some of the things you've raised, whether we will see it actually make it to the final print of the law if or when we have a constitutional review? Or in this case, this would also include a police reform review.
The new Police Act actually provides for that the funds accrued provide for the Nigerian police as an institution to provide accommodation or support accommodation of these officers in the Police Act. I cannot really put my head to it currently, but I think maybe section 27, I've forgotten the subsection, but provides for the institution to provide accommodation or provide facilities for them to be able to have accommodation for themselves. These are the things I actually said earlier, that the police force itself, despite having laws that actually support their cause, the funds are not provided for them to be able to implement it as it should. And that has also tended to also be one of the gaps or things limiting them from also being able to carry out their work properly.
So let's switch this to impact. In the event that we have the police, say, moved out of barracks and become members of the community, what do you think that would do for the manner in which the police function in our societies?
First and foremost, the police now will be working based on the information they are getting directly. It won't be a second class, or should I start second class, but second information. Instead, they'll be getting the direct information from the community. That is one. And when they are living with the people, they'll also be scared of doing that which is wrong in the community. You see some law enforcement officers coming to a particular area, raiding the community, taking them to go and extort some monies from them at the station. But if they are living with those communities, they won't come and do that, because they know when you are done at the station, certainly you come back to the community. So such type of trends of criminal activities that were happening before, it will reduce, because you won't be living at the station. You certainly come back to the community. And if you are also in the community, you already know who the criminals are. You may not need intel. You may not need anybody reporting anybody. So this won't be a case of reprisal attack where one person will go and report criminal activities, and then once such a person is apprehended and later released, we go back to hunt such persons like it happened in Yobe some years back. So that won't be the situation, because the police, as they are living with the people, they know the situations in the community. They know the problems in the community, and they will know how to also plan in addressing the problems with the community. So at that level, there's better understanding. The community also they already be with the police. That means they will certainly be able to work. We already have CDAs and CDCs at the community level, and we have PCRC at the community level. And even before the Nigerian independence, there were community policing structures at the level of the community. So each community have certain people or young persons that defend such communities. So it makes it easier to work with such communities. And before I'll give an example. During December time, we had a session with a particular community in Ajuwon, Ogun State. And those communities, we encourage them. I think it has become a standard now, where monthly they have meetings with the DPO at Ajuwon police station. So if there are issues within their community, maybe the police have been behaving wrongly by maybe victimizing people, torturing people, arresting people unnecessarily, they bring up such issues and it's addressed, and especially if they are particular about a particular officer doing that. But at the same time, also, the police themselves, if there are issues they're also finding in such communities, they also talk to the leaders of those communities that are in that meeting. So gradually, there is better understanding and the unnecessary arrest has reduced over time. So these are also some ways that may not be written in books, but they actually help to address the concerns of insecurity and lack of trust between community and the police.
Well, Mr. Ekule, thank you very much for speaking with us on the interview this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's the interview today on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. We were speaking with the Executive Director of Elixir Trust Foundation, Mr. Emmanuel Ekule, and our conversation centered on welfare for the police. We have seen pictures and they are still circulating. As a matter of fact, a drive through Ikoyi would picture this very clearly, or put this very clearly to you. The police barracks at Ikoyi continues to be in a state of disrepair despite promises at least as early as or as late as November of 2023 to renovate the police barracks. And we will continue to bring you these sort of conversations as well as updates when we do have them.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM.